Today's topic is whether or not children who are gifted are often mislabeled as, say, having a mental health diagnosis. It comes from a friend of mine who was curious about this because what she sees in society is maybe, say, the over-medication of children because of rising disorders like autism spectrum disorders and attention deficit disorders. And she's curious of whether or not what we're really doing is just kind of suppressing children's natural giftedness. As a kid who has probably had at least traits of ADHD myself as a child, it's of particular interest to me. The way that I think about this topic is something isn't considered a disorder unless there's disorder, unless there's some degree of impairment in the child's life. And caretakers can look for different degrees of impairment in a child's life with things such as lowered academic achievement, perhaps oppositional behavior, the developmental delays, such as communication problems or not meeting milestones, things along this nature. Simply not conforming to parental wishes is not considered a disorder, assuming that the parental wishes are reasonable. So it's very difficult for parents sometimes to understand that as kids develop, that they have their own path, and we want to encourage them down that, and that absent of any of these other things that I've noted as signifying an impairment, that they probably need to just let the child continue on and support them and discover who they are in as healthy a way as possible. That doesn't mean they just need to condone all types of behavior. Approximately 37% of children probably have some behaviors that could fall on the spectrum of a mental health disorder, like oppositional defiant or something like this. And about 3 to 5% of children, of gifted children particularly, are at risk of being mislabeled with a mental health disorder. And what this does is it doesn't really address the real core issue of what they're struggling with. On the flip side, children who are gifted and labeled as gifted may not actually feel comfortable to say, you know what, actually I'm really sad, or I'm struggling with this over here, or oppositional behavior may be more tolerated because they're gifted as opposed to being addressed. If that were continued into adulthood, adults are a little bit less tolerant. They don't really care if you're a genius or not, if you're a jerk. So when they're young, it may not be as readily addressed, and it becomes more of an issue when they get older. So it's kind of two sides of the same coin. Gifted children may be labeled as having a mental health disorder, depression, Asperger's, what was formerly known as Asperger's, but somewhere on the autism spectrum, maybe oppositional defiant. And on the other side of the coin, children who are really gifted may not feel comfortable talking about what they're struggling with. So the theme here is, when we label someone, we kind of funnel them into something. And if there's absent of any impairment in their daily functioning, then we don't really want to do that. We want to kind of foster them, help them grow, understand who they are, support them, develop their moral aptitude and all of this along the way. But ultimately, encourage the process of self-discovery within certain social confines for sure. Not just willy-nilly at their own discretion. If you have any more questions about this or other related topics, just be sure to leave a comment below.